There is a forest in central Ontario where the water temperature in May can sit at 4 degrees Celsius, cold enough that a person who falls in has roughly 10 minutes before their muscles stop responding to commands from their own brain. Every year, close to 1 million people visit this forest. They paddle its lakes, walk its trails, camp under its pine canopy. Most of them come home. Some of them do not. And the question that search and rescue coordinators, provincial police, and the families left behind have never fully answered is not why Algonquin Park is dangerous. Everyone who has spent a night there in October understands that. The real question is why people who know the risk, who have maps, who have done this before, keep disappearing in ways that should have been preventable. Before going further, hit subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Algonquin Provincial Park covers 7,653 square kilometers of the Canadian Shield, an area larger than the country of Cyprus. It contains over 2,400 lakes and more than 1,200 kilometers of canoe routes. Most of the interior has no cell service. The nearest hospital from the deep backcountry can be 3 to 5 hours away, depending on weather and which access point you started from. The park was established in 1893, making it one of the oldest protected wilderness areas in North America. For more than a century, it has drawn paddlers, hunters, and hikers into a landscape that looks, from the surface, entirely manageable. A lake, a portage trail, a canoe. None of it looks like the kind of place that kills people. That is precisely the problem. The mechanism that ends most lives in Algonquin is not exotic. It is cold water. A canoe capsizes, the temperature differential between a sweating paddler and the lake does the rest, and within minutes the body begins shutting down the systems it considers non-essential. Hands lose grip strength first, then coordination fails, then judgment goes. A person who could have swum 30 meters to shore on a warm day in July finds themselves unable to complete that same swim in May, not because the distance changed, but because their body did. This is documented, repeatable, and almost entirely preventable with a properly worn personal flotation device. And yet, year after year, the Ontario Provincial Police respond to drownings where the device was in the canoe, not on the person. Hypothermia works on a longer clock, but with the same outcome. A hiker caught by an unexpected October rain, wearing cotton instead of synthetic fabric, loses body heat through evaporation even after the rain stops. Cotton, once wet, does not insulate. It accelerates heat loss. Core temperature drops below 35 degrees Celsius, and the early symptoms, shivering, slowed thinking, clumsiness, are easy for the person experiencing them to dismiss as ordinary fatigue. By the time shivering stops, the body has begun a more dangerous phase. In its final stages, severe hypothermia can produce something called paradoxical undressing, where a person whose internal thermostat has failed begins to feel hot and removes their own clothing in temperatures that would otherwise kill them faster. Searchers have found hypothermia victims partially undressed in conditions where every layer mattered. The body, in its last malfunction, works directly against its own survival. In March 1980, a hiker on the Hardwood Lookout Trail near Whitney found human remains 77 meters off the marked path. A wallet with no identification, a sleeping bag, a camp stove. To this day, the person has never been identified. Whoever they were, however they ended up there, the forest absorbed the evidence of their final hours and gave almost nothing back. In 2007, a young woman named Christina Calayca walked away from a campsite at a different Ontario park with 3 friends and was never seen again. Searchers used aircraft, canine units, and eventually submarines in the nearby water. 11 days in, with no physical evidence at all, the search coordinator still described her chance of survival as high. A former OPP search and rescue coordinator later suggested that the absence of any trace might mean she covered far more ground than anyone believed a person in her position could cover, or that the case was never a wilderness disappearance to begin with. Either explanation leaves the same unresolved fact. The land kept its answer. In 2010, a 41-year-old man named Richard Code left his home in Scarborough for what police described as a wilderness survival excursion near Algonquin. He was supposed to return after 3 days. He did not. Officers eventually learned he had been picked up hitchhiking south of the park, which meant he had made it out of the deep woods alive, only to go back in. His body was found north of Horn Lake, in an isolated area with no camp set up around him. He was an experienced outdoorsman. He had chosen the woods deliberately, more than once. Experience did not change the outcome. These cases do not share a single cause. They share a pattern, the same pattern researchers have documented in every wilderness environment that kills people slowly instead of suddenly. Confidence does not scale with actual risk. A canoeist who has paddled the same lake for 20 years treats a sudden squall the same way they treated the last 100 calm afternoons, right up until the moment that assumption fails. A hiker who has never needed a map before assumes they will not need one this time either. The forest does not punish first-timers more than veterans. If anything, the data suggests the opposite. Familiarity produces exactly the kind of reduced caution that turns a survivable mistake into a fatal one. The Algonquins and other Anishinaabe peoples moved through this land for thousands of years before it became a park. And their relationship to it was never one of recreation. It was survival knowledge passed down with the understanding that the lakes and the cold and the distance between help and harm were simply facts of the place. The way weather is a fact, not an obstacle to be defeated. Modern visitors arrive with a different assumption: that a map, a phone, and a few hours of daylight constitute adequate preparation for an environment that has been quietly killing competent people since long before GPS existed. Algonquin does not advertise its danger the way a cliff edge or a rapid does. There is no single dramatic feature that announces the risk. The danger is distributed across 1,000 ordinary decisions: which jacket to wear, whether to wear the life vest or simply pack it, whether to turn back when the sky changes, or push on toward the campsite that is almost but not quite close enough. Almost is the word that appears in nearly every recovered case file. Almost dressed for the weather, almost wearing the vest, almost back to the portage before the storm. The lake does not know the difference between almost and not at all. It only knows whether you made it across.